Hello. Okay, so we're in Act 3, Scene 2 of Julius Caesar. We have just listened to Brutus's speech and Mark Antony's speech. We had literally just gone through Mark Antony's speech. That speech of Mark Antony's is actually what in previous years students had to memorize, because I really think it's just a lovely speech. It has some nice repetition in it. You can really break it down easily to memorize it. But man, you can act it out so beautifully. So if any of you guys want to do that for, extra just because, you think that sounds fun, have at it, man. I would love for you to send me that video of you being Mark Antony. That would be cool. So he gives this amazing speech. And of course he's starting out and he's like, Caesar, I'm not coming to praise him, guys. I'm coming to bury him. And then he's like, he was too ambitious. It was a grievous fault. He should have died. Then he starts talking about Brutus and the rest of the senators. He talks about how honorable they are. Keeps repeating it. And then he talks about how, Caesar was so ambitious because that's what they said. That's why they killed him. But he points out, point by point, how Caesar wasn't really that ambitious. After all, Caesar brought many captives home to Rome that made Rome wealthy. But Caesar didn't pocket that money. Wouldn't an ambitious man have pocketed that money? Wouldn't he have profited personally from it? Caesar didn't do that, but Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. Then he talks about how when poor people cried out, Caesar wept for them. Caesar somehow, even though he was nobility, he somehow understood the plight of the poor man. This happens sometimes where people who aren't really a part of maybe a certain group in society, they seem to really get it and they fight for those people. Sometimes we're born where we're born. We can't help that. But sometimes we really understand the plight of a different group of people, and Caesar seemed to be one of those people. Gosh, if that's ambition, he should have been better at it. And then his final point is that he himself, Mark Antony, offered him a crown 3 times, and Caesar refused it 3 times. Man, if he's ambitious, he's doing it wrong. Because when somebody offers you a crown and you're ambitious, you're like, oh my gosh, for sure, thank you. This is great, I love it. So gonna be king. Awesome. So Mark Antony gets to the end of his tirade. And then he's like, I have to pause for a second, guys. I feel it too strongly. And that's where we left off, where he had to pause till he could kind of regain his composure. Man, it's a powerful thing. When you don't lose your cool very frequently, and then you do, that's more powerful than somebody who blows up all the time. So if you think of these people who are temperamental all the time, they freak out about everything in life. Man, that's not, you just kind of get used to them being loud and freaking out, right? It's not a big deal. But when somebody who's always calm and dignified, whenever that person kind of loses their cool, man, that's meaningful. So he's just lost his cool in public, in front of all these Roman citizens, these plebeians. Okay, let's see what they think. What do they say? Let's listen.
Methinks there is much reason in his sayings.
If thou consider rightly of the matter, Caesar has had great wrong.
Has he, masters? I fear there will a worse come in his place.
Marked you his words. He would not take the crown, therefore 'tis certain he was not ambitious.
If it be found so, some will dear abide it.
Poor soul. His eyes are red as fire with weeping.
There's not a nobler man in Rome than Antony.
Now mark him. He begins again to speak.
But yesterday, the word of Caesar might have stood against the world. Now lies he there, and none so poor to do him reverence. Ah, masters, if I were disposed to stir your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage, I should do Brutus wrong and Cassius wrong, who you all know are honorable men. I will not do them wrong. I rather choose to wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you, than I will wrong such honorable men. But here's a parchment with the seal of Caesar. I found it in his closet. 'Tis his will. Let but the commons hear this testament, which, pardon me, I do not mean to read, and they would go and kiss dead Caesar's wounds, and dip their napkins in his sacred blood. Yea, beg a hair of him for memory, and dying mention it within their wills, bequeathing it as a rich legacy unto their issue.
We'll hear the will! Read it, Mark Antony!
Okay, let's pause for a second. So the plebeians, as they start, like, they're thinking about what he's been saying. They're like, wow, I mean, he really makes sense, the stuff that he's saying. Yeah, like, if Caesar meant to, if he was ambitious, he would have taken the crown. That's weird. Yeah, that's true. He didn't do that. And then this other guy's like, oh, there's no nobler man in Rome than Mark Antony. Whenever you think somebody's noble, you believe what they say, don't you? Okay. And so they're like, oh, we better listen to him. Antony starts talking. He's like, yesterday Caesar was at the top of the world, man. Nothing could touch him. And now, look at where he's at. He says, if I were disposed to stir your hearts and minds to mutiny and rage. Yes, I mean, I would not do that. I should do Brutus wrong and Cassius wrong, who you all know are honorable men. I will not do them wrong. I rather choose to wrong the dead, to wrong myself and you, than I would wrong such honorable men. And then he's like, oh yeah, but I have Caesar's will right here in my hand, but like, I'm not going to tell you what it says because it would move you to action. And I don't want to do that. That would be bad. So I'm not going to tell you about what he left for you in his will. That would be wrong of me. And they're like, read the will, Mark Antony, we want to hear the will. Have you ever had somebody do that to you where they drop a piece of information into their speech? They're like, oh no, I'm not going to tell you what your birthday present is. It's in this bag right here. And you're like, what? Tell me. Like, you want to know, So of course, that's what he's doing. Let's see what the will says.
Have patience, gentle friends. I must not read it. It is not meet you know how Caesar loved you. You are not wood, you are not stones, but men. And being men, hearing the will of Caesar, it will inflame you, it will make you mad. 'Tis good you know not that you are his heirs. For if you should, what would come of it?
Read the will! We'll hear it, Antony! You shall read us the will! Caesar's will!
Will you be patient? Will you stay a while? I have o'ershot myself to tell you of it. I fear I wrong the honorable men whose daggers have stabbed Caesar. I do fear it.
They were trained.
Can we just pause to be impressed with Antony? First of all, he's like, yeah, I can't tell you guys that you're his heirs because that would be wrong of me. And they're like, read the will. And then he's like, no, I wrong the honorable men if I read the will. He says, I fear I wronged the honorable men whose daggers have stabbed Caesar. I do fear it. Now they're shouting that they're traitors. Man, have things really changed really quickly.
Traitors! Honorable men! The will!
They were villains, murderers. The will. Read the will.
You will compel me then to read the will.
Aye!
Then make a ring about the corpse of Caesar.
Gather in.
And let me show you him that made the will. Shall I descend? And will you give me leave?
Okay, let me point something out. So this whole time that Antony has been speaking, he's been speaking in kind of the poetic verse. He's speaking as a nobly born man. He's, using his art of rhetoric. If you remember, Brutus actually lowered his words He spoke on their level. He spoke in prose, just on their level. And that's really nice. Antony one-ups him. Antony doesn't lower his words. Antony lowers his entire body. He has them gather in, and then he walks down into the midst of the common people. What he's saying as he does that, he says, man, I trust you. We are all equals. We are all mourning together the loss of this great man, our Caesar. He lowers his entire body, and in doing that signifies to the people that they have kind of a common grief that they're experiencing together. Antony wins as far as who lowered themselves enough to really reach the people. Brutus may have lowered his words the way he chooses his phrases, but Antony lowered his entire body to meet these common people where they are. It matters.
A ring. Stand round.
Stand from the hearse, stand from the body.
Room for Antony, most noble Antony.
Nay, press not so upon me. Stand far off.
Stand back!
If you have tears, prepare to shed them now. You all do know this mantle. I remember the first time ever Caesar put it on. 'Twas on a summer's evening in his tent. That day he overcame the Nervii. Look, in this place ran Cassius' dagger through. See what a rent the envious Casca made? Through this, the well-beloved Brutus stabbed. And as he plucked his cursed steel away, mark how the blood of Caesar followed it, as rushing out of doors to be resolved if Brutus so unkindly knocked or no. For Brutus, as you know, was Caesar's angel. Judge, O you gods, how dearly Caesar loved him. This was the most unkindest cut of all. For when the noble Caesar saw him stab, ingratitude, more strong than traitors' arms, quite vanquished him, then burst his mighty heart, and in his mantle muffling up his face, even at the base of Pompey's statue, which all the while ran blood, great Caesar fell. Oh, what a fall was there, my countrymen, then I and you and all of us fell down whilst bloody treason flourished over us. Oh, now you weep, and I perceive you feel the dint of pity. These are gracious drops. Kind souls, what weep you when you but behold our Caesar's vesture wounded? Look you here. Here is himself, marred as you see with traitors. Oh.
Okay, so Mark Antony, they want to hear the will. They want for Mark Antony to read the will. And he goes down, he has them all gather in, then he steps down into the midst of them, and he gets really close to Caesar's body. Then he uses this really interesting technique. Let me show you. Okay, so Caesar has his mantle on him. His mantle, some type of a thing that would be normally over his shoulders, okay? And so Mark Antony, we're just going to imagine my blanket as a mantle. Mark Antony, he's supposed to be reading the will, but he picks up the mantle. He says, if you have tears, prepare to shed them now. You all do know this mantle. I remember the first time ever Caesar put it on. So maybe this is a special mantle, only like somebody who's the head of the country would wear, okay? And he talks about when he first saw him wearing it. And then he says, oh, look there. That's the place where Cassius's dagger went through. See what a rent the envious Casca made. And through this, the well-beloved Brutus stabbed. And as he plucked his cursed steel away, mark how the blood of Caesar followed it. It's like an object lesson. Have you ever had one of those lessons where somebody picks up something in front of you and they're showing you piece by piece? Now, Antony has no way of knowing which stab wounds are which, okay? So this cloak, it has a bunch of holes in it, and they all have blood around them, and there's no way of knowing. But he is using this to kind of, to show them, to make them imagine for a second what that moment had to have been like when Caesar was surrounded by his friends and brutally stabbed in the back. Whew. Good job, Antony. You know, he gets done with this whole like imagining thing, looking at this mantle, and you know, he pauses. Let's see what the people say.
Oh, piteous spectacle. Oh, noble Caesar. Oh, woeful day. Oh, traitors, villains.
Oh, most bloody sight.
We will be revenged. Stay, countrymen. Peace there. Hear the noble Antony.
We'll hear him. We'll follow him. We'll die with him.
Good friends, sweet friends, let me not stir you up to such a sudden flood of mutiny. They that have done this deed are honorable. What private griefs they have, alas, I know not that made them do it. They are wise and honorable, and will no doubt with reasons answer you. I come not, friends, to steal away your hearts. I am no orator as Brutus is, but as you know me all, a plain, blunt man that love my friend. And that they know full well that gave me public leave to speak of him. For I have neither wit, nor words, nor worth, action, or utterance, nor the power of speech to stir men's blood. I only speak right on. I tell you that which you yourselves do know, show you sweet Caesar's wounds, poor dumb mouths, and bid them speak for me. But were I Brutus, and Brutus Antony, there were an Antony would ruffle up your spirits, and put a tongue in every wound of Caesar, that should move the stones of Rome to rise and mutiny.
Okay, so he starts talking here. He's like, no, guys, I'm not trying to get you to rise up and mutiny. No, you know, no mutiny here. And then he says, I'm not an orator as Brutus is. I don't speak as beautifully as Brutus does. You guys heard him. I mean, he was amazing, right? He's a senator. Like, I'm just a common guy. I'm just like a soldier. I'm not a senator. So I don't have the artsy way of talking that the senators have. He says, no, I don't have the power of speech to stir men's blood. I only speak right on. I only speak honestly. I tell you, if I were Brutus and Brutus me, I would probably be, raising you guys up to mutiny, but yeah, I'm not Brutus. Let's see what they say.
Burn the house of Brutus! Away then, come seek the conspirators. Yet hear me, countrymen, yet hear me speak. Why, friends, you go to do you know not what. Wherein hath Caesar thus deserved your loves? Alas, you know not. I must tell you then. You have forgot the will I told you of.
So he reminds them, they're like about to tear off and go set houses on fire. They're like, let's go get them! Go get the conspirators! Kill them all! Yeah! And he's like, guys, I didn't even tell you what the will said yet. I mean, you asked me what the will said. Don't you even care? And they're all like, oh, oopsie.
Here is the will, and under Caesar's seal, to every Roman citizen he gives, to every several man, 75 drachmas.
Most noble Caesar, we'll revenge his death!
Oh, royal Caesar! Hear me with patience. Moreover, He hath left you all his walks, his private arbors and new planted orchards on this side Tiber. He hath left them you, and to your heirs forever, common pleasures to walk abroad and recreate yourselves. Here was a Caesar. When comes such another?
Okay, so Antony finally tells them what is in the will. What has Caesar bestowed upon the Roman people? Well, he's given them all money. 75 drachmas, that is money. So he actually has said that his money should be split up and every Roman citizen should be given X amount of money. Now, the cool thing is, we understand 75 drachmas. I mean, who knows? That may be like $20 or something. But if we all got $20 from the government or something, that'd be nifty. Some senator dies, some president dies, and they're like, every person in the United States of America gets my money. And it is dispersed between all of us. That would seem significant, right? And to somebody who's really poor, man, that $20 would be solid. That would be awesome. And then not only that, Caesar has bestowed all of his walks, his private arbors, his new planted orchards, all on the side of, he's bestowed them upon the Roman citizens. Isn't that amazing? That's pretty cool. So normally whenever wealthy people have nice homes and they have maybe some gardens and things, people who are poor don't always have these beautiful places to walk. So Caesar has actually set up his private orchards and arbors and walks. He has bestowed them on the Roman people. So this is the first public park, maybe, in ancient Rome. Previously, this was something only wealthy people enjoyed. You only had the access to something like that if you had a lot of money. And for many people, they did not. So that wasn't something they could enjoy. So he has given each of them money, which actually, Mr. Olson gave me the little thing that shows that a drachma... $12,000. Oh, that'd be $12,000. That's a lot of money. See, I was thinking if it was just $20, that would be pretty solid. It was actually a pretty good chunk of change. So imagine that. That's a lot of money. So he's bestowing a lot of money on the Roman citizens. And then giving his walks, his arbors, his personal private space to reflect and rejuvenate, renew himself. He's given that to the Roman citizens. Wow. Let's see what they say.
Never, never! Come away, away! We'll burn his body in the holy place, and with the brands, fire the traitors' houses! Take up the body!
Go fetch fire! Block down benches!
Cut down forms, windows, anything!
Now let it work. Mischief, thou art afoot. Take thou what course thou wilt. How now, fellow?
Sir, Octavius has already come to Rome.
Where is he?
He and Lepidus are at Caesar's house.
And thither will I straight to visit him. He comes upon a wish. Fortune is merry, and in this mood will give us anything.
I heard him say Brutus and Cassius are rid like madmen through the gates of Rome.
Belike they had some notice of the people, how I had moved them. Bring me to Octavius.
So the last thing Mark Antony says, he says, wow. He says, here was a Caesar. Here was a Caesar. Not just Caesar, but here was a Caesar. So we're seeing that term change. The term Caesar actually becomes the word for the person in power. And it was from Julius Caesar. So here was a Caesar. He's kind of already using it that way. When comes such another? And all of the people, man, they're moved. They just want to do something. They're like, you're right. They killed Caesar. He was our guy. He's given us money. He's given us walks. He was always on our side, and they killed him. He was our best friend. And those guys killed him. Terrible. Now remember, before Antony got up to speak, the Roman citizens were like, yeah, Brutus, you're right. He was too ambitious. Solid. We agree. Now they're like, get the fire. We're going to go burn down their houses. And they run off. They take Caesar's body. They're going to take it, and then they're going to go burn down the houses. And basically they start looting Rome. And Antony says, "Now let it work. Mischief, thou art afoot. Take thou what course thou wilt." So Antony has set something in motion here that will cause a great deal of grief. You know, one has to wonder. I'm not really sure precisely what we should think. Antony shows solid skills in oration. He absolutely is using his art of rhetoric to persuade people, for sure. And the conspirators, the senators, did kill Caesar. They stabbed him in the back. They didn't even put him on trial. They didn't justly try to see if him being made a monarch was a bad thing. They went and stabbed him in the back. So all of these things are terrible. Some would argue Antony is not perfect in this scene because he does get the people in such an uproar. And then the servant for Octavius Caesar comes in and says that Octavius is actually at Caesar's house. So Antony's like, all right, we're going to go see him. Now I'm going to go ahead and play scene 3 because it's like one page, okay? So I'm going to play that for us real quick and then we'll talk that out. I want you to think of what you know about mob mentality. We're going to be talking about that. Okay, so listen, one thing I need to tell you too. There was a conspirator named Cinna. We are actually in the scene, we're in like a regular street. There is this guy, he's a poet. His name is Cinna. He is not a conspirator. His name just happens to be Cinna as well.
Dreamt tonight that I did feast with Caesar, and things unluckily charged my fantasy. I have no will to wander forth of doors, yet something leads me forth.
What is your name?
Whither are you going?
Where do you dwell?
Are you a married man or a bachelor?
Answer every man directly.
Aye, and briefly. Aye, and wisely.
Aye, and truly you were best.
What is my name? Whither am I going? Where do I dwell? Am I a married man or a bachelor? Then to answer every man directly and briefly, wisely and truly. Wisely, I say, I am a bachelor.
Not as much to say as they are fools that marry. You'll bear me a bang for that, I fear. Proceed directly.
Directly, I am going to Caesar's funeral.
As a friend or an enemy?
As a friend.
That matter is answered directly.
For your dwelling, briefly.
Briefly, I dwell by the Capitol.
Your name, sir, truly.
Truly, my name is Cinna.
Tear him to pieces. He's a conspirator.
I am Cinna the poet. I am Cinna the poet.
Tear him for his bad verses. Tear him for his bad verses.
I am not Cinna the conspirator.
It is no matter, his name's Cinna. Pluck but his name out of his heart and turn him go.
Tear him. Tear him. Come, brands, ho, firebrands, to Brutus, to Cassius, burn all! Some to Decius' house, and some to Cascus, some to Ligarius. Away! Go!
Okay, so that's a terrible scene. So all of the Roman plebeians, all of these common people of Rome, they are running the streets, they're setting things on fire, they're looking for any of the conspirators that they can find, and they find this guy, and they're asking, where, like, what is your name? Where are you? Who are you? You know, where are you from? And they're asking all these details because they want to find the conspirators and kill them. Well, he finally says, my name is Cinna. And they're like, aha, it's a conspirator. And he's like, no, I'm a poet. And they're like, kill him anyway. Doesn't matter. Kill him. So this is a great example of mob mentality. So there are moments, and, you know, I think we just have to think about, have we ever seen this happen in real life, where you have a group of people and a few, like, maybe loud people that are kind of really emotionally invested or involved in some way. They kind of, like, stir everybody up, and they've all been stirred up already by Antony. At this point, they're just setting a lot of stuff on fire. They're killing random, innocent people. Cinna is not a conspirator, but they killed him anyway. His name's Cinna. Can you imagine if, like, the justice system worked that way, where, like, you have the same name as somebody who killed somebody, so, like, you get to die? That's terrible. So, really a sad situation and a good example of mob mentality. Sometimes whenever we are with a group of people, we check out, we just let our brains kind of check out on logic and reason, and we go with emotions, and we go with, yeah, we're all gonna do this together, we feel really angry, rah! And that's mob mentality. So it's really kind of a scary situation whenever we give in to that. These Roman citizens have given in to that, and it is not pretty. They are killing people who should not be killed. So this has really become pretty scary. If you got the death clock, I put that out on Google Classroom. I would say print that out. It had Marcellus and Flavius from Act 1, but in Act 3, right here, we know, of course, Caesar has died, and now we know Cinna, the poet, has died. So we have 2 more people to add to that death clock. If you are printing one of those out and you're going to go ahead and write people down, that would be good to do. Okay, I'll see you guys. That's all of Act 3.